Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the start of season 7 of Behind Your Eyes. And I have the lovely Lisa here as my guest. So, hi Lisa, if you would like to introduce yourself to everyone.
Sure. Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for having me on the show. So my name's Lisa.N.Alexander, and I am a filmmaker now. I can say that I've had a career in the creative industry for the past 20 plus years. I've always been a storyteller,
Mhm.
and now I find myself being able to tell stories through film. So I've
Mhm.
worked on documentaries for clients, and so now I'm working on my first feature film.
Mhm. And that's so exciting. We'll get to that a bit later, but I always
Sure.
start with the same question, and that is a sincere, how are you doing?
I am doing good today. I've been having some issues
Mhm.
sleeping. When you get to be a woman of a certain age, let's
Mhm.
put it that way, certain things start happening. And so last night I got a beautiful night's sleep. Had a wonderful massage this morning. I am doing good. That's the
Awesome.
honest answer. I am feeling wonderful this morning.
That's
Ask me that
great.
yesterday, you might have gotten a different answer, but today I am feeling wonderful.
Oh, that's all that matters, right? This moment.
Right.
Well, as you've mentioned, you're a filmmaker now, and you just released the film "My Father, the Queen." I would love to hear from you how that came about, and a bit about the storyline.
Sure. So we are in pre-production. We are trying to get it out. So
Oh,
we're
okay, exciting.
fundraising. We are taking meetings, putting our crew and cast together, doing all those things, nailing down locations. So all the things you do in pre-production, we are in the middle of. I love that we've come so far. We've got key components of the cast. We've got great crew members. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
So My Father the Queen actually started out as a novel. I was
Mhm.
going to write a book. I was going to make it a book. And I'd written and written, but I was struggling writing the book because I was trying to adapt for the screenplay at the same time.
Mm.
And so that is absolutely nuts to try to do both at the same time, either write the book, write the screenplay.
Yeah.
And so thankfully, I had someone, a very wise sage counsel, and they said, Lisa, if your passion is with the screenplay, just write the screenplay. You can always come back to the novel if you want to.
Mhm.
So I wrote the screenplay. I finally buckled down and wrote the screenplay. It was the first feature film screenplay that I had written. So learning how to format and write screenplays was a lesson in and all of itself. It was like me learning Mandarin. I'm a native English speaker, and it was sincerely like trying to learn Mandarin,
Mhm.
getting everything together. And it's not that I haven't written before, but this particular style of writing, she goes, I can say that I got moving. So really happy to
Mm.
be in this space.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. And do you have like a date set for when you want to release it? Or?
2024. So
Mhm.
probably we're looking at maybe Christmas or a Thanksgiving movie. So 2024 around that time. That's when we think we'll release.
Mhm. How exciting,
I
yeah.
know.
And could you
And
tell
so
a bit about like the storyline? Because yeah, that's
sure.
quite
So
full.
so the the story is loosely based on my life. And so it is what it is to grow up having we call them daddy issues. So
Mhm.
when you don't get the love and support, the um validation of your father, and what
Mhm.
that can do to a young woman. And I've been telling people that daddy issues have no gender.
Mm.
It just does not. There's a quote that says that fathers are a son's first hero and a daughter's first love.
Mm.
And so at the end of that, I tag on, until he's not, or if he's not able to do that, what happens to the children whose fathers cannot pour into their lives, who cannot be there emotionally for them, and what kind of effect does that have on a young person growing up, and how does it weave its way and manifest its way into adulthood? And so me having had that experience and know what it's like to have daddy issues and see how
Mm-hmm.
it impacts your self-esteem, your worth, your value, how you see yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my particular issue was is like I had a parent that always nitpicked at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so you always start to question yourself, and it's like, am I good enough? Do I look okay? Is what, it's what's wrong with me today? You never believe
Right.
that you're in this good state, that everything is good. You rarely believe that everything is okay. There's got to be something wrong because you've been
Mm.
told that something
Yeah.
is wrong.
Yeah, there's always a focus
Ev-
on the
ev-
negative. Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
part. And so just how does that manifest
Mm-hmm.
in someone's life? And so the film talks about, it shows this relationship, this very tumultuous relationship between father and daughters, and then even between a father and his wife. A husband and his wife, and how dysfunction knows no color, doesn't care about your social economic, doesn't care. Dysfunction does
Mm-hmm.
not care.
Yeah. Dysfunction
And
doesn't
again,
discriminate.
not it is an equal opportunity employer. It
I,
really, really is. And
yeah.
truly, truly it is. And so what the film is about is we have a closeted gay black man who chooses to stay closeted. And this is during the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, when it was not okay to be out and proud. And so
Yeah.
part of the father's mental health struggle is having to keep his secret. And then
Mm-hmm.
he's got so much energy tied up into keeping his secret and not being able to live his truth. He's not available, emotionally available, to pour into his children or give his wife what she needs. And so we just see how that ravels throughout this family, and
Mm-hmm.
what it costs them. And you get to see how these daddy issues manifest in real life in
Mm-hmm.
this particular family.
Mm. That's interesting, because you mentioned you've had that experience also yourself with daddy issues, and so I would love to know that how did you work through that?
So for me, for my community, for Black folk, um, therapy, we always said that was for what white people did therapy. We didn't do
Mm.
therapy because you had Jesus and you had the church. And there
Oh.
are a lot of communities of color that do not submit to therapy at all. And it's like,
Mhm.
what goes on in this house stays in this house is the
Right.
mindset. We don't talk about it, shove it down, keep pushing. And
Mm.
so it just recently became okay for people of color, black people in the black community, to
Mhm.
get help, go to therapy. So for the first half of my life working through all of this, I journaled
Mm.
because therapy wasn't available to me. So I have
Mm.
over 20 years of journals, sitting outside my door because I finally packed them all up. But that
Yeah.
was how I found clarity. That is how I was able to resolve some things, and just all the aha moments that came from me just simply journaling, not filtering myself, writing however I felt, and then going back and I can reread it. And, then I could start to see patterns. Then I
Mhm.
could start to see um, just these cycles, and then begin to work on them, as best as I knew. And I've always knew I wanted better for myself. I wanted better for my life. And how do I go about that? So journaling was a huge, huge thing for me. And I highly recommend it. It wasn't until I say maybe the last 10 years or so that I
Mhm.
sought the help of a therapist and was able to work through some other issues. And, just I say that healing is a process, and it's
Mm.
like peeling back onion layers, layer at layer at a time. So um,
Yeah.
I've said within the past 10, 15 years, saw my first therapist. So the first part of the healing journey looks like a whole lot of journaling, pages and pages. Thank God for all the trees that were donated for me to write those things out. But that's how that worked. I journaled and then sought the help of a therapist to work through all those issues.
And did you always recognize it as such as daddy issues, or were there other layers involved? Mhm.
I didn't see it at first.
Mhm.
It took, because there were a whole lot of other experiences as well. It's like, well, why? So I can roll it back. So if you are experiencing daddy issues, or if you have a parent, just a parent in general, that is not there for you emotionally, doesn't validate you, they don't have the bandwidth themselves because they're carrying their own trauma. So if
Mm-hmm.
they don't have the bandwidth to nurture,
Mm-hmm.
be a nurturing parenting, then what does that impact have on a child? And so for me, it was the constant nitpicking, the constant me worrying about, am I good enough? Am I valuable? Um, just that it's like my self-esteem. So always questioning. I didn't think I was worthy of any good thing that happened to me, that it was just chance, happenstance. And so then I found myself in a situation where it just, that kind of teaching just was drilled. And it's like, you're never good enough. You'll never be um, more than you are right now. And it's like your goodness is tied up in something else. And you
Mm-hmm.
need somebody else to it just really became this thing. And so um, when I moved from California and moved to Houston, for me, that was a time of shedding all of that and beginning anew. And so I could begin to unravel and unpack it. So then as I began to unpack and unravel, that's where I began to see how these daddy issues manifested. So one of the big things that came out of this for me is I lost my grandfather, and my parents divorced pretty close to each other, right? So I loved both of these men. As a young girl, loved these men. And my
Mm-hmm.
grandfather was a baker, and so he would come by after his shift, and he'd have fresh made croissants and all kinds of sweet things, and they were just absolutely wonderful. And
Mm-hmm.
then my father, he baked. There was no meal that there was not a dessert. He
Mm-hmm.
just did not believe in that.
Yeah.
There was always something, right? Always something. And so when I lost those two men,
Mm-hmm.
I figured, and this, it was not a conscious thing, but just something that I did. If I couldn't have them, then I can have what they made.
Mm-hmm.
And from that experience, trying to get that back, or to have those relationships, and it was like I developed this very unhealthy relationship with food. Sweets in particular became this very emotional eater, up to
Mm-hmm.
the up to 300 pounds, nearly 300 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And so it took journaling for me, helped me
Mm-hmm.
to see that. I was journaling, and then that's when I was able to put two and two together
Mm-hmm.
and figure out that that's how it impacted me. And
Mm-hmm.
so there was this whole unraveling that happened.
So you were like filling the gap, but also still looking for like validation externally. Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how
Absolutely.
is
And
your relationship now with maybe with your father, if he's still around, or and with
he is
yourself?
st- sure, he is still around,
Hmm.
but we are not in communication. We are there was a thing that happened that led me to know that peace and healing is not what he was after. So just because it's available to us, all the therapies and the things, it's like you still have to want to heal and do the work. And
Hmm.
so if you're not willing to do that work,
Yeah,
then that it's not a relationship that I could be in. And
yeah.
so
Healing can never be forced.
never,
Mm.
just never. And I understand why people would opt to stay in places that are unhealthy, because to do the work is the work, and it's painful, and
Mm.
healing is messy, and just all the self-awareness, because there's one of the greatest things that come out of this is like you have to be able to forgive yourself for
Hmm.
your part in all of the trauma and all of the foolishness. You have to be able to own what's yours. And some of us, we still like to blame, and it's like, no,
Hmm.
it's your fault, and you do this and you do this. But when you have to be able to step back and go, okay, I own this piece.
Hmm.
This, I'm responsible for this. And then be willing to forgive yourself, because some people stop there. They make
Yeah,
the acknowledgement. It's like, oh, I did this. And it's like, I'm responsible for this, but never move to that next step of forgiving yourself. And that's
yeah,
hard because we stay in our heads, right?
yeah,
And when people compliment you or they say something nice, you're already rolling the tape. It's like, but I did this, I did this, I did
yeah,
this, I'm not worthy
yeah,
of that, I did that. And it's like, oh, you don't know about this. And it's like, just shut up and say thank you. And it's like, just accept the
yeah.
compliment, be
Stop playing the
gracious and
shame
accept
game.
it, right? And so, so I think it's so important. And so, there's I hate to say toxic relationships has become a buzzword now,
Mm.
but when you're in, but there are such things as toxic relationships. And, there was, I think it everything came to a head maybe about 3 years ago. And I realized that it was no matter what I did, the the healing, his healing was his. It's his work to do,
Right.
not
Yeah.
mine.
It's his journey. Yeah.
It's his journey. And if this is what he's chosen, then, much love, lots of prayers. And it's like, but I cannot. And I sincerely believe that everything happened exactly the way it was supposed to, because of the kind of person that I am. And it's like, I'll still keep giving chances. And it's like, well, maybe we can work this out. And maybe, you know, because I love hard. And it's like, I
Mm.
love family. And,
Yeah.
but the way things happened, and it's like, oh, this is done. And my therapist suggested that I leave things
Mm.
where they are and not
Yeah.
go, looking for it. It's like,
Yeah.
Lisa, I don't think so. So I'm
It
going to
takes a lot
follow
of
the
strength
doctor's orders.
to recognize a toxic relationship and actually cut ties with it.
Yeah, because you love family, especially your parent, they're supposed to
Mm.
be. That's the thing. We have these expectations of things that are what's supposed to be and what's supposed to happen. And
Yeah.
then when that doesn't, what do you do? How do you handle that? So
Hmm.
it's been a journey. The good thing
Yeah.
is that you can choose family. You can choose.
Oh
And so
yeah.
I think that's a freeing thing. I get to choose the people who I want around me and in my space. And I'm very
Yeah.
selective. I'll put it that
Yeah.
way. I'm very selective.
Oh yeah. Selective about who enters your energy and who deals with it.
Absolutely.
Mm. And
Absolutely.
that's self-love to its core, I think.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that's a beautiful result or manifestation of once you do all this healing work and truly you forgive yourself and you own what's yours, because there's, everybody has a piece in it. And it's like, so own own yours, that this self-love really is a result of doing the work. And
Hmm.
you decide, um, what you'll say yes to, what you say no to. And
Hmm.
that's another part of self-healing and self-love, and you really find your peace. And so I remember, I was in a meeting, and one of the speakers, she was saying, she had us write down all these things. It's like the things that were most important to us.
Hmm.
And it could be values, you value financial stability, it could be peace, it could be family, whatever these things were. So I wrote out my 4 things, and peace was one of them. And she
Hmm.
says, okay, now you have to get rid of one of them. And it's like, okay, well, all right, we'll do this. And these were hard choices, right? These are
Hmm.
hard things. It's like I value these things and I don't want to do without them. And
Yeah.
she says, okay, well, something else is happening. Now you have to get rid of another one. And it's like, oh man, this is getting hard. It's like, no, wait. It's like, what am I willing to live with, and what am I not willing to do without? And so she says, okay, you have to get rid of a third one. And so what's the most important thing to you? And I'm looking at the last two, and I'm going, oh man, it's like when it came down to it, peace was the last thing standing.
Oh.
It's like I will fight you tooth and nail over my peace.
Yeah. You're not taking my peace from me.
I worked too hard to cultivate this space, to
Mm.
have this peaceful space. So I will fight you for my peace. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, just no. That it's and I think that's when you've lived a life that's been so drama filled. So they tell me, it's like, write what you know. Oh, I know drama. And so this film is absolutely a drama. I know
Mm.
drama. So I wrote this very well. And so because I've lived all that and I've had chaos and it's been under my roof, peace is the most important thing. It is the most valuable thing for me.
Hmm.
I protect my peace at all cost.
It is your essence.
Yes.
Mm.
And it
And
is
I,
my right.
oh yeah, absolutely, that's for sure. So I would love to know why it was so important for you to write and tell this story.
I'll tell you a couple of things. So this particular story has not been told before. So when I've sent the script out, they were like, Lisa, you've tapped into something, and especially coming from the Black perspective. And so we have um, I think it's so important to humanize Black bodies,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of their sexual orientation,
Mm-hmm.
their religious beliefs, economic status. I believe that we have to humanize these experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was important to me to tell this particular story and to show people what consequences look like. So in 1972, the American Psychological Association said, you know what, we're going to run it back. Homosexuality is not a mental health issue.
Mm-hmm.
1972.
Wow.
But by that time, you had already, people had gone through um, electric shock therapies and all these pray the gay away kinds of things. And then
Yeah.
you also have, religious institutions who will say that it's an abomination and
Mm-hmm.
it just consider you an outcast. And so for me, it was important. It's like I want people to see how those societal norms, how those doctrines impact real families.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to see how it plays out in real life, because it's one thing to stand behind a podium or issue a report that says, this is what we see and this is what we say. And, some of these are, what are considered doctrinal truths and this, but it's like, I want you to see how it impacts real people's
Mm-hmm.
lives. And so that's why this film is so important. It's to open up the lives of regular people, Black people, and how this impacts you. So it's wonderful for the LGBT community because now they have a certain freedom. But even now, there's still stateside, and I know that the LGBT community is not accepted everywhere. I know that there's still a lot of pushback in certain countries.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of freedom here in the States, but still now there's legislation that's going forward that's anti-trans. And it's really a woe be unto you if you're a Black trans woman. They get killed and murdered at such high rates. So again, this film is so important
Mm-hmm.
to be able to humanize Black bodies and the Black experience.
So important.
Yeah.
Mm, absolutely. And you mentioned before that in the Black community, it was always seen as quite a shame to ask for help. It was just not done. Do you know what it is like currently?
Still, it's still. I will say that again, it has gotten better. So
Mm-hmm.
thanks to certain things, medium is such a powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so is storytelling. So I tell my clients, I have a creative agency and I work with a lot of nonprofits. And so I tell my nonprofits all the time that, storytelling has the ability to shift the culture and
Mm-hmm.
redirect narratives. So a real good story will do that. So we've seen good stories on our sitcoms and TV shows where it makes it okay
Mm-hmm.
to see, and especially to see a Black person go into therapy
Mm-hmm.
and working those things out. And so I think that we need to continue to see these things, and so we can have impact and change about our mindset. We call it
Mm-hmm.
removing the stigma. And
Yeah.
so we do have especially Gen Z and millennials.
Mm-hmm.
I'm proud of them. I'm really proud because they are doing that kind of work. They're making it. They are okay with going to therapy. That they're going to talk it out and work it out. So I'm really excited for these two generations in particular. I'm a Gen Xer, my parents boomers, and so for us it was still a little iffy about this whole going to therapy thing. It's better than it was. I'll
Mm-hmm.
say that it is much better than it was. Do we have a ways to go? Oh, absolutely, because you still have organizations that will tell you that it's not a mental illness, it's something else. And so we still have some work to do, but it is far better than it was.
So, and you truly believe also storytelling connects. Mm.
Absolutely. I believe in the power of storytelling. I believe it stories can humanize in a way versus just giving you stats and numbers.
Yeah.
um I'm gonna give you flesh and blood to look at, and here it
Yeah.
is, this is how it's worked out, then you tell me. And so again, I tell my nonprofits, and it's like I even have a website that's totally geared for them where they can come and tell their stories, and then we feed that out to community leaders because they are the first. So whatever your nonprofit does, whenever there is legislature or change in policy, they're the first ones to know because it impacts their community. So
Mhm.
let's say you have a program on food and nutrition, and something just happened on the state level, and it's like, well, we're cutting funding. That nonprofit that feeds people can
Mhm.
tell you how this new policy is impacted. They can give you real life stories,
Yeah.
and so that's why I believe in the power of stories,
Mhm.
especially from nonprofits. I have a big heart for nonprofits. I love the work that they do,
Mhm.
but storytelling is so important.
Yeah.
It's so
And yeah.
important.
And especially the raw and truthful stories, the real stories.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
not the glamorized ones.
No,
No.
no, just no,
Yeah.
no. And every story doesn't have an happy ending,
Mhm.
And I've
Yeah.
learned that from just life. And
Yeah.
then some of the clients that I have and I've worked with, every story doesn't get a happy ending. The end of the film, it's such a lovely ending. I'm so
Mhm.
happy I can't wait for it to get made and share that with everybody, because at the ending it's there's this moment, and so I'm just really
Mhm.
excited about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
the power of storytelling.
Yeah. I believe in the power of storytelling. That's why I love doing these interviews. They're to me, they're my storytelling.
Mm, absolutely. I love
And
it.
currently, how do you stay mentally healthy?
How do I stay mentally healthy? That's an excellent question. I continue to journal.
Mhm.
I yoga, exercise. I've got two puppy dogs, so
Oh.
some days I'm going to say that's a good thing. Then um, they keep me present, and
Mm.
so
Yeah.
and being present is such a healthy thing. So when I'm
Yeah.
working away on my computer and it's been too long, the youngest one, he'll come up on my desk and he'll look at me and he's like, no, you've been here too long and we need to go
Yeah.
outside.
We
And
need to
so
go for a walk.
yes, so they help me stay healthy. I still journal.
Mhm.
um and I protect my peace. And it's always, I think when you've gone through certain things, it's like you always have to remind yourself or be mindful of the conversation that you have with yourself.
Mhm. Yeah.
So that again, that's how just being cognizant. It's like, no, wait, that thought just went way off the rails. It's like, let's bring that back.
Yeah.
It's like, how did we end up here? And it's like, no. So it's just,
Yeah. That was a sidetrack that I wasn't supposed to go on. Wait a second.
can I get that 60 seconds back? Because that just went weird. And it's like, come back. And so
Yeah.
that's how and just being aware of that. And so that's how I practice taking care. And so rest is a big thing, and
Mhm.
knowing when to rest. So if you're an entrepreneur, especially stateside, there is this glorification of the hustle and the
Oh,
glorification of work, no days off and all this other kind of foolishness.
yeah. Mm. No,
I
rest
don't
is
subscribe.
underrated. Oh, rest is such a big part of self-care.
Abs-
Hmm.
And so and I would always feel guilty since I work from home. If I'm on the sofa just laying there, letting whatever's on the TV, and it's like, oh, I should be doing this, or maybe I should be
Mm.
doing that. And it's like, no, sis, you need to be laying on this sofa, doing nothing, just
Yeah.
taking this moment. And
Yeah.
so that's and that was a big struggle. And
Mm.
some days rest wins, some days the hustle wins. That's just be the truth. Some days.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Um, some days. And another thing that how I practice self-care is we garden. And so we grow a lot of vegetables and flowers in the backyard. And my husband built this wonderful canopy so we could put up shade cloth because it gets terribly hot here in Houston. And last year's we didn't get such a good crop because it was 90 degrees in May. We were looking at near 100-degree temp. It was hot.
Yeah.
So we decided to give our plants a fighting chance this year. So now it's this
Mhm.
really lovely oasis that we've created. My husband found 3 stumps by the side of the road. And so he brought those home. So now we can sit on the stumps and watch the garden. So
I
those
love.
kinds of things just bring me peace. Being by water is a wonderful thing. I love being near water. That's a healing
Mhm.
place for me as well. So that's all the things that I've learned and how I take care of myself and practice self-care and self-love.
Because self-care to me is also like getting to know yourself and what it is that you love and value.
Yes.
Mhm.
Who knew I would love digging in the dirt? I didn't know this. I didn't know. I didn't know.
And now
I
you
didn't know
do.
I love I do cultivating composting. Oh my God. It's like digging and it's like I got worms. I got worms. It's like, look, it's
Yay!
like they're doing what they're
Healthy
supposed to do.
dirt. Yeah,
I didn't
I
know.
love it too. I have my berries and my cherries and my apples. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same. Nature
Love it.
brings you back
Absolutely
to
love it.
yourself. I always feel a healing presence in nature.
But same, and especially, being near water is just
Mm.
everything to me. And then walking under canopies of trees, it just brings great peace. And so
Mm.
those are a few of the ways.
Yeah. Well, my last question is also always the same one, and that is when are you at your happiest?
I'm gonna be honest, when I'm by myself,
Mm, lovely.
I like solitude. I do. I love quiet. So when everybody's out the house and it's like the TV may not go on, I may
Mm,
not say a word to anyone for the whole day until family gets back. And it that just absolutely just makes my day. And I guess it may be a trauma response, but
mm,
I like quiet. I love the peace and the quiet of it all because there was just always so much. Oh my God, it was just so noisy and so chaotic. So
mm,
now for me, my happy place is like if it's quiet and it's peaceful, I don't have to. I can just sit here and just
mm.
look,
Yeah,
and
just
I'm just
enjoy.
as happy.
Yeah, you recharge your battery again.
Absolutely,
Mm. Well, thank you so much, Lisa. It was such a joy to talk to you, truly.
Suzanne. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.